Hi, everyone. Welcome to a read aloud. Today, I'm very excited because this is the first read aloud I'm doing in this new kind of genre study we're doing, which is biographies. So today, I'm reading a biography about one of my most favorite inspirational heroes of all time, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And, we are in our third grade class. We're starting this unit about thinking about people who inspire us and how they make an impact on the world. And in my opinion, I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg has made a huge impact on the world, and we'll talk about that more throughout the unit. But for today, let's just do some reading, okay? I, of course, have my book, my reader's notebook, a pen, and I also have sticky notes. And so now I'm going to pop over to the informational reading progression. This is informational because it is a biography, even though it is narrative because it's a story. This has informational elements. Okay, so let's pop over and take a look, and I'm going to identify some skills I want to work on today. Okay, I have my informational reading progression pulled up, and I kind of already had an idea about which thing I wanted to do. Of course, I'm going to do orienting, right? Because I'm starting a brand new book and I want to get my brain ready to read it. So I will do orienting. And then I want to kind of go down on the skills on the slideshow because that's the more challenging skills. And the one that I felt was important was this one, analyzing parts of the text in relation to the whole. And I'm going to really take a look at the order of events and kind of think about like the beginning, middle, and end, and how Ruth Bader Ginsburg's childhood and early life kind of impacts her later life. I think that's an important thing to realize when we're analyzing. Okay, so let me write that down in my notebook. Okay, so I've just written the title here. I have the date, the title, the author, and then I wrote my skills: orienting and analyzing parts in relation to the whole. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, of course, I'm going to do some orienting. I've seen the picture here. I know that this must be Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I'm going to read the blurb as well. Fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. And that's a quote from Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So this is kind of telling me that kind of her life story is about like fighting for the things that she believes in. I'm wondering if that's going to be like physical fighting or something different. There's also, because this is a hardcover book with a book jacket, there's a blurb on the inside here. So let me read that. I disagree. I object. I beg to differ. I do not concur. I dissent. Disagreeing does not make a person disagreeable. In fact, it can change the world. Throughout her life, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has made a big difference, one disagreement at a time. Okay, so now I'm understanding that maybe the way she was fighting for things is she was disagreeing with people about things. And says that allowed her to make a big difference. Okay, so I think I'm going to be learning about the kind of disagreements that she made in her life that helped to change the world. So I just put in here that my orienting, I'm thinking this book will tell me about the things Ruth Bader Ginsburg, or RBG, disagreed with and how she was able to change the world. Okay, here we go. Here it is. I dissent. Ruth Bader Ginsburg makes her mark. You could say that Ruth Bader Ginsburg's life has been one disagreement after another. Disagreements with old creaky ideas, with unfairness, with inequality. Ruth has disagreed, disapproved, and deferred. She has objected. She has resisted. She has dissented. Disagreeable? No. Determined? Yes. This is how Ruth Bader Ginsburg changed her life and ours. In 1940, Little Ruth's neighborhood was vibrant with immigrants. People from Italy, Ireland, England, Poland, and Germany. Jews from Russia, like Ruth's father, Nathan Bader. People from different cultures with different holidays, foods, and traditions. But in all these families in Brooklyn, and in families everywhere, one thing was the same. Boys were expected to grow up, go out into the world, and do big things. Girls were expected to find husbands. Ruth's mother disagreed. Celia Amster Bader thought girls should also have the chance to make their mark on the world, so she took Ruth to the library. On the shelves were stories of girls and women who did big things. Ruth read about Nancy Drew, girl detective. She discovered Amelia Earhart, daring aviator. She learned of Athena, goddess of Greek myths. Here were independent girls and women taking charge. Ruth read her way into this world. Around her, the sweet scent of books blended with the savory aromas from the Chinese restaurant downstairs. Delicious. A girl could be anything. Okay, so because I'm analyzing the parts of the story in relation to the whole, the author's telling us right in the beginning the influence that Ruth's mother had on her, which was she took her to the library. She didn't believe that girls' only job was to go find a husband, so she wanted Ruth to learn things. And that's a big part that I think is going to have a big impact in the whole story. Okay, so I've just noted that in the beginning here, Ruth's mom had a big impact on Ruth. She taught Ruth that girls could be anything. She also encouraged her to read by taking her to the library. Sometimes Ruth and her parents took car trips out of the crowded city. As they drove past a hotel in Pennsylvania, Ruth saw a sign, "No dogs or Jews allowed." This is how it was in those days. Hotels, restaurants, even entire neighborhoods announcing, "No Jews, no coloreds, no Mexicans, whites only." Ruth and her family were Jewish. This was prejudice, pure and simple. Now it was Ruth's turn to disagree. She disagreed by never forgetting how it felt to read such words. She never forgot the sting of prejudice. In elementary school, Ruth was excellent in some classes, less excellent in others. Her favorites were English, history, and gym. In those, she did well. But then there was handwriting. Ruth was left-handed. Back then, teachers told left-handers they should try to write with their right hands. Ruth's right-handed penmanship was so bad, she earned a D on her penmanship test. She cried. Then she protested. Ruth protested by writing with her left hand from that day forward, and it turned out she had quite nice handwriting. So now we've seen two things that she disagrees with, right? The prejudice in those towns that say like no Jews, no colored people, no Mexicans, whites only. That's prejudice, and she disagreed with it. Then the handwriting. The teachers wanted her to write with her right hand, and she said, "No, I'm going to write with my left hand." Ruth also had a little problem with sewing and cooking. These were her least favorite classes, but girls had to take them. Boys took shop. They worked with saws and other tools. Ruth objected. She wanted to take shop. She wanted to handle a saw. But she didn't always get what she wanted. It may have been unfair to girls and to boys, but Ruth was learning that sometimes life was like that. Ruth loved music, especially the opera. In music class, she lifted her voice in song. You might be able to see in the pictures how the other people felt about her singing. This time, it was Ruth's music teacher who objected, gently. Ruth simply could not carry a tune. The teacher asked Ruth not to sing out loud in the chorus. Ruth kept on singing, though, in the shower and in her dreams. She continued to adore the opera as well. By the time Ruth was in high school, friends and teachers knew her as an outstanding student, baton twirler, cello player, and newspaper editor. As graduation approached, Ruth was chosen to make a speech at her ceremony, but she'd been keeping a big secret. Her mother was terribly sick. The day before graduation, Celia Bader died. There was no agreeing with this. There was no disagreeing. This simply was. Ruth did not go to her graduation. She did not give her speech. Still, Ruth knew what her mother wanted. 3 months later, she left home to attend college. So we wrote in the beginning that, or I did, Ruth's mom had a really big impact on her, and she really set the stage for Ruth to kind of have this disagreeable, or like this mentality that it's okay to disagree. It's okay to say, hey, this isn't right. And so I disagree with that in a respectful way. And then her mother died, right? So that's a big impact. And I'm wondering how her mom's influence is going to carry on throughout Ruth's life. Let's keep reading to find out. Not many girls went to college in the 1950s. Ruth made friends, but she also met girls who excluded Jews from their clubs. She met boys who thought girls should be looking for husbands. And then she met Martin Ginsburg. Marty was tall and funny. Ruth was small and serious. Marty could make her laugh. They fell in love and hatched a plan. After college, they would go to law school, both of them. Lawyers, Ruth had learned, could fight unfairness and prejudice in courts. People thought it was a fine idea for Marty to attend law school. They didn't think Ruth should go. A lady lawyer? People disapproved. And Ruth disapproved right back. So did Marty. They got married, they went to law school, and they had a baby named Jane. Okay, so I was thinking about how the influence of Ruth's mom would carry on throughout her life. And I'm noticing that, like, in the beginning of her life and when she was in school, she disagreed with a lot, right? And she did it in a respectable way, but she said, no, I don't want to bake cakes. I don't want to write with my right hand. All these different things. And now she's taking that momentum, that courage, that, whatever, and she's going to college, which a lot of girls didn't do back then. And she's becoming a lawyer to dedicate her life to fight unfairness. I think that's a pretty important part of the story that's going to relate to the whole. So I'm going to write it down in my book. Okay, so I've just kind of gathered my thoughts about the middle of this book. Ruth's childhood paved the way for her decisions later in life. She disagreed with unfairness, so she decided to become a lawyer so she could fight unfairness for a living / for her job. Ruth's law school class had a total of 9 women and 500 men. Let's think about that for 1 minute. Her class in law school had 9 women and 500 men. She studied mightily and tried for first place in her class. And yet at graduation time, no one would hire this brilliant new lawyer. Why not? She was a woman. Men did not want to work with a woman. She was a mother. Men thought a mother wouldn't pay attention to her work. She was Jewish. Many people still were prejudiced. 3 strikes against her, but Ruth was not out. She resisted, and persisted. Finally, a judge hired her, and she worked like mad for him. After that, one law school hired her, and then another, and Ruth became one of the few female law professors in the whole country. And she did it with a new baby at home named James. Ruth had disagreed and worked her way into being a lawyer and a professor. But around her, other women were excluded from jobs. When they did get jobs, they earned less than men. They were kept out of important roles in courts and in government. To make matters worse, the Supreme Court of the United States, which is the highest court in the country, approved all of this. As one Supreme Court justice had written years before, "The natural and proper timidity and delicacy which belongs to females evidently unfits it for many of the occupations of civil life." That's a fancy way of saying girls can't do the things that boys can. Oh, in other words, girls and women were too shy and too weak to do things in the world. Another Supreme Court opinion declared, "Woman has always been dependent upon a man." Ruth really disagreed with this. I'm sure a lot of you girls do too. So Ruth went to fight for the equal treatment of women. The most important cases went to the Supreme Court. The first time she appeared there, Ruth was so nervous she feared she might be sick. But standing before the Supreme Court justices, Ruth imagined them as her students. She, Professor Ginsburg, needed to teach these students, who were all men, why a person's choices should not be limited just because she was born a girl. Ruth wasn't only fighting for women. When women were excluded from the work world, men were excluded from home life. Why shouldn't a father stay home to care for his children and cook the meals? Why shouldn't his wife run a business? These were fresh ideas in the 1970s. Ruth did not win every case, but she won enough. With each victory, men, women, boys, and girls enjoyed a little bit more equality. Okay, so I'm noticing this is kind of like the middle again, right? That something she's really passionate about is, she worked really hard and she was able to disprove a lot of things and get hired as, good jobs and whatever, but that didn't happen to everyone. So she was saying, I have a platform, I have this job where I can fight for other people. And she did that. She wasn't only worried about herself, but she was worried about all women, all men, all boys, all girls, right? She wanted everyone to have fairness. I'm going to make a note of that. Okay, so I've written just a quick note about something else I'm noticing in the middle, which is Ruth continued to disagree with a lot of unfair rules in society. She used her voice not only to fight for herself, but she also cares about equality for everyone, right? And I feel like that's connected here to what happened in the beginning of her life and the middle of her life. So it's like the parts of this story are all connected to this overall goal that Ruth Bader Ginsburg had. Sometimes Ruth and Marty's children received confused looks when they said that their mother argued cases in the Supreme Court and their father made the family's dinners. People found this strange. Ruth, Marty, Jane, and James did not concur. They kept on being the type of family they wanted to be, and the dinners at the Ginsburg homes were delicious. Marty was a successful lawyer, but also a marvelous chef who had mastered a lot of French cooking. Ruth, her family knew, had mastered the art of the burnt pot roast. Some figurative language there telling us that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was not a very good cook. Ruth became well known as a lawyer. So well known that President Jimmy Carter chose her to be a judge in Washington, D.C. Then Ruth became known as a first-rate judge, and President Bill Clinton asked her to be a justice on the Supreme Court. Along with 8 other Supreme Court justices, her job would be to decide the most significant cases and answer the most difficult legal questions in the United States. Ruth agreed. In 1993, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg became the first Jewish woman on the nation's highest court. Right? Pretty impressive. So that's that job. It's the highest court in all of America, and it's nine people that make a lot of the decisions, and she was one of those 9 people. Very important job. In each case the Supreme Court considers, after hearing from the lawyers who argue each side, the 9 justices take a vote. The side that gets the most votes wins the case. The justices who agree with the vote write an opinion to explain the court's ruling. When Justice Ginsburg votes on the winning side, she wears a special lace collar over her robe. But many times, when the Supreme Court announces the decision, Justice Ginsburg disagrees. "I dissent," she says, and she writes her own opinion explaining why. Plus, she wears a different collar just for dissenting. "I dissent," Justice Ginsburg said when the court wouldn't help women or African Americans or immigrants who had been treated unfairly at work. "I dissent" when the court rejected a law meant to protect the rights of citizens to vote, no matter their skin color. "I dissent" when the court said no to schools that offered African Americans a better chance to go to college. Justice Ginsburg can be very convincing. In one dissent, she explained why the court was wrong to rule against women workers who were fighting to get paid the same as men. Congress and the president agreed. They agreed with her, and they passed a law to undo the court's ruling. Justice Ginsburg has disagreed most often with the legal views of Justice Anthony Scalia. But they didn't just complain. "I dissent. No, I dissent." They shared their conflicting ideas. Each pointed out weaknesses in the other's arguments, and after the opinions were written, the 2 justices had fun with each other. They didn't let their disagreements about the law get in the way of a long friendship. Here they are parasailing in France. Here they are riding an elephant in India. So I'm kind of thinking now that, like, you know, she continues. Not only does she make her voice heard in, like, you know, she has this high job where she gets to make these big decisions, but when the vote doesn't go her way, she doesn't get angry. She writes a paper that says, "I dissent," and she explains why she doesn't agree with the vote and why she doesn't think that that was a good choice. But she does it in a way that doesn't hurt other people, right? So she's just such a good model for disagreeing with people, but disagreeing in a kind way. Disagreeing in a way that's firm to say what she believes, and if she sees unfairness, she will say it, but she's not mean about it. Justice Ginsburg is now the oldest member of the Supreme Court. Some people have said she would quit because of her age. Justice Ginsburg begs to differ. She works as hard as ever. She exercises in the gym, and she never misses a day in court. She attends the opera, gives speeches, and travels. Many have cheered Justice Ginsburg on for her persistence and independence. They have called her a rock star, a queen, a goddess, a hero. Of course, Ruth Bader Ginsburg isn't a rock star, or a queen, or a goddess. But to many, she is a hero. She made change happen, and she changed minds. She cleared a path for people to follow in her footsteps. Girls in college, women in law school, and anyone who wanted to be treated without prejudice. Her voice may not carry a tune, but it sings for equality. Step by step, she has made a difference. One disagreement after another. And then there's quite a bit of text about more details about her life. And this book was written a few years ago, and unfortunately, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg did pass away just a few months ago. So she's not still alive, but it was really recent that she passed away. It was a very sad day. So my final thoughts. In the end, I think the book, like the moral here that, each of the parts, my goal was analyzing the parts in relation to the whole. Each of the parts of her life built up to the person she became as an adult, right? Throughout her childhood, throughout her adolescence, while she was in college, a young mother, and then all the way into her 80s, she was fighting for fairness and equality. And so throughout, the whole story had all these little parts that fit together. It was a sequence that showed how one person can kind of follow this path. And, her life is really a lesson to us that we can do this in a kind way. So I'm going to take a note about that at the end, for the end. Okay, so just in the end here, I wrote that RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, never stopped fighting for what she knew was right. She was a hero and a role model to lots of people, and it is clear how all the different parts of her life were connected to make her a hero. Now I'm going to pop back to my book list, which, I forgot to add Omar there. I'll leave a space for Omar. What's the date? 13th. 5 out of 5 I gave this book. Dissent. Ruth Bader Ginsburg makes her mark. I love this story. I love this woman. I think she's so inspirational, and I think she's really had a huge impact on the whole world. We will be talking more about this in class, but I'm wondering, who do you think is super inspirational? Who do you think had a huge impact on the world? Let me know, and I can find a biography of them so we can discuss and, look at inspiring people's lives and how they live their life to become such an inspirational person. Okay, thanks for reading with me. I know this was a long one, but it was worth it, right? See you soon.